You know what? It's a rare example, because you might think joking, I'd struggle with the good, but I don't at all. This is it's a purely wholesome point. Now, here's the thing. For me, this is good. For fans, this might be bad. All the good teams qualified for the major.
Oh.
Yeah.
All the good teams. As in, if I made a list before the major, here are the 10/15 teams that have to be there. Every single one of them made it. Every single one. There's not a single one that I care about didn't. Like, guess what? I'm not someone who pretends to give a fuck whether mouse make it or not. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Like, even people, by the way, even the ones you might think I wouldn't care about, like Astralis, I'd still rather they were there. Like, first of all, they've got legendary names, and then secondly, believe it or not, this is where people aren't smart. Astralis losing is a better storyline than, like, Heat winning and still losing as well. Like, I'd rather watch Astralis lose at the major. So it's very rare this ever happens. I don't think people know how rare it is in CSGO history that every top team qualifies for the major. And not only that, this was the time when everyone had to qualify. It wasn't like the past majors. Well, remember, until from Berlin back, you used to get it from the legend spot, just get top 8, etc. So this was the major, by the way, where thankfully we haven't had to even think about this because I didn't want to fucking bring it up. But imagine if that fucking conflict shit had affected Na'Vi and they just didn't even qualify to their own major where they were the reigning champs. Like, this could have been the darkest major ever, boys. So thankfully, all the fucking grey skies are gone. The clouds are all away. So now we can just have a brilliant major. We can let the actual fucking play of the teams determine who wins it. And the last thing I'll say as well is the reason I was concerned that they all wouldn't qualify is because we had this weird thing with the RMRs and then like the NA one was super weak, for example. And then in Europe, even though like it's a great idea, the European one, who the fuck made those groups where like Group A was like a murderer's row, Group B was like, who the fuck? And like, and then so like there were so many, in my opinion, chances for this to go badly that I don't know how we locked out. Like, this actually suggests, by the way, as much as people hated on it, it actually implies to me, by the way, that things like the Bucalt system to some degree work. Because what it means is that you didn't accidentally get an elimination game where it was like G2 Vitality. So I'm picking on random teams here, obviously not people I could have played. Like, you didn't get a match where it was like, that happens in Swiss systems that are randomised. You get the bullshit one for the 3-0 where the two bomb upset teams play, and then you get the other one. This system actually seemed, as far as I can tell, to make teams have the matches that they should have. So that might be a controversial take, but I enjoyed the fact that everyone qualified.
I think the one team that kind of... I mean, there were a couple teams, I think, in Group B that snuck in for me that I don't know if they would have if it were A, but, like, there was... Yeah, I think... Okay, I'll say this. For the most part, this was good in terms of who made it. I think every top 15 team on HLTV made it except for Movistar.
Yeah. Like, I was looking it up. I was like, how are Movistar the highest ranked team that didn't make it? How are Movistar ranked 12th, actually?
They didn't even get through the open qualifier. So that's on them. That's on them.
Yeah.
I say that as Big almost didn't make it through the open quals, by the way. But yeah, either way, I mean, there's a lot to like about this Swiss system and how it paid off. I will say, I think it was in Group A. If I'm not mistaken, like every single opening BO1 went the way of the favorites. Like I don't think BO1 should be used like way too much or deeper in tournaments or anything like that. But for these kind of openers, it actually surprisingly is pretty effective at weeding out the bad teams and just giving them a couple losses early on without having to over inundate just the viewers with a million different games.
They did also seed it quite well, I will say though. If you look who plays who, again, you don't have some like bonkers one. Like for example, like if you are FaZe, you do play like Eternal Fire. If you're heroic, you play Forza. Like it looks like they seeded it well. Yeah, it looks like they made it like a pretty reasonable one. Yeah,
exactly. So I think that it worked out pretty well. I'm glad that we have the top teams at the major. Yeah, I don't really like if Heat made it over Astralis. I kind of was like, good for Heat, but at the same time, I'd rather just see what Glaive can do. On
of course.
Stage,
just give him give him a lottery ticket, basically. Because there's the other thing, by the way. This obviously doesn't exist as a common concept, but if people don't know, I've always thought a brilliant concept from tennis is when they give out a wild card to the Grand Slam. Because what you do is, it's famously, if people don't know, how in 2001, even Ishtovic won Wimbledon. Because what you do is you give what you do with the wild card typically is you either give it to an up-and-coming player, or you give it to like a legend who still plays. Because the premise goes, look, you're not going to win, like you haven't even qualified, but like, fuck it. You have a chance to win some games, and the difference is, like I said before, people would rather watch you lose, and if you ever go on any kind of miracle run, that's fucking amazing for the tournament. So, yeah, same concept with Astralis. Like, the difference was, Heat realistically was never going to do anything, were they? Whereas, like, probably Astralis won't either, but you at least want, like, the sweat. You want to, put it this way, you want, like, the anime version where you want to believe Glaive's in the fucking lab, working on shit on a blackboard, coming up with new stuff. He probably isn't, but you want to believe that, for your own sanity, right?
Yeah. So, yeah. Hawker, you have any?
You have any thoughts on it?
Just I think not only do you get the top teams, weirdly enough, like if you were to pick like a wild card, for example, like Thorin's pointing out there, you probably would pick someone like Imperial just for the whole Fallen factor and just the names and whatever, and they made it. And then there's just a couple of regions that I didn't expect to make it, like the Bad News Eagles, obviously, Eternal Fire. Like, it's weirdly worked out that there's a bunch of interesting teams. IHC, obviously, I didn't even talk about them, the Mongolian team, who I did not think were going to make it. So yeah, just really cool that I think it's worked out nicely. And even, like you said, the teams that didn't make it, I think Mouse and OG didn't make it, right? Like, I don't care that much.
Yeah, of like
teams
no,
that
exactly.
not making it, to be honest. Like, I think OG came hot onto the scene and some people got a bit hyped, and I never fully believed in that team fully.
No, that's also why the timing worked out, because the obvious teams that like at once upon a time might have been interested are like Mouse, OG and Fnatic, and luckily they're all in a spot where no one gives a fuck that they didn't make it. That's why I said it's actually just worked out amazingly, because that's what would have ruined that group A if those teams had actually been legit. Some of them, like, then there would be too many good teams, not enough spots, all that jazz. Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.